Hey folks, welcome back to the channel, and if you've been following me for a while, you'll know that I'm really digging the toothpick class quads. Real tough question here is, what is a toothpick at this point? Well, it seems like everybody's got their own definition. Bob Ruge has one. It's below, I don't know, what do you say, 70 grams or something like that. My personal opinion is basically 3-inch biprop and smaller, whatever size lipo, but you know, everybody's got their own opinion what a toothpick is. And today I have a really cool, I guess this would be a toothpick. It's the Diatone GTB 229. Let's take a look. Open the box, we get some Diatone stickers, little bag of goodies, some the lipo strap, some zip ties, looks like a few little pigtails, a set of props. These are the HQ 65 millimeter, 1.5 millimeter shaft props. So you get one set in this like translucent gray color, and then you get the quad, which is firmly zip them tied to the box. Let's go ahead and clip her out of there. Oh, I clipped the wrong zip tie. Dang it. All right, I'll have to replace that. So anyways, in the box, there's a QR code for getting to the instructions. It says this TBS VTX is not locked by default. Sorry, not unlocked by default. I don't know, again, I don't know why they lock VTXs. If you're in the US and you're using a VTX, unless it's that ancient Fat Shark thing, you need to have a ham technician's license. That's it. There's no other, that's it. That's how it works. The fact that they come locked in any way, shape, or form is kind of strange. Anyways, here is the quad. It is tiny. Look how small that is compared to my hand. Just to get an idea, it is about 111 millimeters from motor post to motor post. It is very, very light. It's got a nice little TPU printed canopy on it, a dipole antenna, XT30 connector for the lipo. It has this plug sticking out the side here. That's going to be for your receiver. The motors are a 1103 8500 kV motor, and it will accept the T-style props, but ideally you would just use kind of a 65 millimeter push-on prop. Has a Runcam Nano 2 camera. The VTX is a TBS Nano Pro 32. The ESC is the Mamba 134 Nano, and the flight controller is the Mamba F411 Nano. They state the dry weight of this is about 44 grams. They recommend using a 2S 550 milliamp lipo. So let's take a closer look at it. So we have the TPU printed canopy, which is really nice looking print. I mean, they're doing a really good job printing these things. It has 1, 2, 3 standoffs installed, but not the fourth one. And the idea is you hook it up to Betaflight and you program everything, and then you put your standoff in, because the standoff will block the USB port. That's not super ideal, but hey, I really can't think of a better way to do it than that. Let's go ahead and lift the top. All right, so the canopy is loose. Take a look in here. Disconnect this guy, and we'll just feed VTX antenna back through the canopy. So inside of here, you can see we have the Runcam Nano 2 camera. And here is the stack. On the top we have the TBS Unify Nano Pro, or TBS Nano Pro 32 VTX, soldered to this carrier board. And underneath that we have the VTX and the ESC. Everything is soldered up just as good as you would expect from Diatone. Very, very clean solder joints. Very good craftsmanship here. I am a little disappointed that there's no Celastic or anything like that on the UFL connector, but we can fix that ourselves. And here off to the side you have this pigtail, and the idea of that is that inside your bag of goodies here, you have a couple different jumpers here. So the deal is with this one here, you plug this in to here, and this is already set up to interface directly with an r-xsr, just like so. And that's it. That's all the work you got to do to install your receiver. I mean, yeah, you got to shrink wrap it and stuff it on top of the stack somewhere and deal with all this extra wire. Or you can go ahead and trim this back and actually connect this to here with a shorter run of wire, but this will work for now. One thing to note is this is set up for an r-xsr, but they did omit the smart port pin. So no telemetry out of the box. Not that we really need it anymore in the days of OSD usage. I don't even bother hooking up telemetry on these things anymore. It's just extra wires, and I don't know. It really doesn't do me any good. So I'll show you how to hook up smart port telemetry. Probably should actually make sure this thing works, but why bother? All right, so we're gonna have to get to our flight controller. So we gotta take our VTX off. You're gonna need a double-aught Phillips screwdriver. And we can go ahead and lift off the VTX. And we'll just set that off to the side. So to get smart port telemetry, we're going to need to use soft serial, and we're going to need to readdress one of the pads on here. And I'm going to choose the LED pad, since I'm not going to run LEDs on this anyways. I shall use that one. So unlike in previous models, Diatone's been notorious for clipping the pins off right flush with the plug, but this time they didn't. So I'm going to repurpose this plug here, and I'm going to steal the white wire out of it. All we got to do is grab something sharp and lift this little tab and pull on the wire at the same time until it pops out. There we go. So now we have our wire, and we'll just take it and push it into our connector block here. You may need to use something pointy to push it in. And once it's in, give it a little tug, make sure it's locked into place. All right. Now I'm starting to get into this, I'm realizing that I probably should just get rid of this whole thing right here and start anew. So the way this is set up normally would be that you got ground power. I'm not 100% sure what that would be. That's probably like 3.5 volts maybe. There's like 3 different diagrams online for this flight controller, and I'm not 100% sure which version this is. And then you've got your yellow wire here, should be running to RX1, and then this is TX1. This is also kind of set up so you can use a TBS crossfire, but we're not using a crossfire, so we're not too concerned about that stuff. I'm going to heat up our soldering iron. Need a pair of tweezers, and I'm just going to remove pretty much all of these. Actually, I'm going to remove all of these. Let's go ahead and turn around so it's someplace where I can work on it easier. Now, you don't need to do this. This is only if you really want smart port. I normally don't care about it, but I'm doing it for you, the viewers. So let's go ahead and get that. That's ground. Power. TX1 and RX1. All right, so we'll take this connector and we'll go ahead and just give the old snip. So we don't need that anymore. Go ahead and strip your wires and tin them up. All right. So those are tinned up. We can go ahead and start reconnecting things. Before you do this, it's probably a good idea to write down how these came off of here, because it's proven to be pretty difficult to find the right schematic for this. We've got ground, 5 volts, S bus, okay, right here I made a real big mistake. I accidentally soldered the S-bus wire to the TX1 pad rather than the RX1 pad. This wire here needs to go to the next pad, if you're looking at this picture, down from where I have it now. I filmed this part a day after taking all the wires off. Big mistake. I probably should have written everything down. It doesn't help that there are literally 3 different diagrams for this flight controller, but yet there's no marking on this flight controller that I've found without tearing it completely off to figure out which version this is. But anyways, going forward, that yellow wire for S-bus needs to go next pad down. All right. And over here, just gonna get these gummies off of here. They're gonna be in the way. And here we're gonna solder up the LED pad here. And there's our smart port wire. Then we're going to use soft serial and resource reassignment. So that's our smart port wire going to our LED pad. In Betaflight, we'll use soft serial and resource reassignment to make this our smart port pad. All right, let's go ahead and button this thing back up. Something to note is these are all nylon hardware too, which not a huge fan of nylon hardware. It does melt pretty easy with the soldering iron, and they do break in a crash. They tend to, but this model's so light that I can't imagine it would actually cause a whole lot of damage. There we go. All right. So there we go. We've got our r-xsr wired up. Make sure that you flash the firmware that you need for your r-xsr before you put it in there. I'm going to be running this on the X-Lite Pro. So I have already flashed it with the Access firmware. If you so choose to, go ahead and slap some heat shrink on there. This stuff does work really well, but it does make getting to the bind button a little on the tricky side. There we go. There's our receiver, all packaged up nice and neat. And all we have to do is mount it on top of the canopy here. I'll just stick it right on top of the VTX like so. So they don't give you any foam tape or anything like that, so you do need to supply a little bit of your own stuff. So I'll just use a small piece of foam tape. And there you go. You always kind of want to think about the serviceability aspect of this, like make sure you're not going to be hosing yourself later. And let's see, our antennae will go out the top. If you want to run them that way, you can do the old school thing and run them out the arms. It really doesn't matter. It's kind of up to you. If you're running a crossfire setup, good luck finding space for antennas. There is not a lot in this model. So there's my antennas. Now I just got to kind of hook up our camera. And go ahead and reinstall our canopy. Make sure you get that VTX antenna routed back through the pod. There we go. And just screw it all back down. Try to pack it all in there. These don't have to go on ultra tight, just enough to make contact. There we go. And now they have like 3 miles of antenna sticking out. Go ahead and just push them back in as best you can. Try to keep them from kinking. It's really not good for RF performance. Not that it's really much of a thing here. But if you can do it right, you might as well. All right, so there's our antenna. And they didn't include any antenna tubes. So if you want to use them, you have to find your own, or supply your own anyways. I happen to just have some laying around. I'll just go ahead and put these on. I've used a bit of antenna tubes before. The Forever tubes seem to last the longest for me. And you just kind of force them in place there. And repeat on the other side. So there you go. You get this little devil looking thing. It's kind of cool. Go ahead and fix that up tilt. I need more. There we go. That's pretty good. It's about 45 degrees. And that's it. Now we're ready to go over to the computer and hook it up to Betaflight. Set up our smart port telemetry. Replace the zip tie that I clipped off by accident. All right, so we have Betaflight up. This is configurator 10.5.1. Go ahead and connect your GTB to your computer. Let it install whatever drivers it needs to, and you should see a COM port pop up here in this little window. If you don't, go ahead and disconnect it and reconnect it, and you should get something. Yours probably won't be COM3, but that's what mine is. Go ahead and hit connect, and it should connect. We see that we have version 3.5.7 installed to the quad. It's kind of an older version, but Diatone's pretty adamant that their tune is the right tune, and you really shouldn't change it, especially if you're buying this as a rated fly. Just run it how it comes. Okay, so the very first thing you're going to want to do is we're going to want to make a backup of the configuration. So go down to CLI, type dump all, go ahead and take all of this configuration data, and save it to a text file. This is going to be our way of getting back to 0 in case we really mess something up. So I'm going to go ahead and just make sure my gyro is aligned correctly, lift up the nose of the quad, make sure the picture moves properly, lift up the left-hand side, make sure that moves properly, and then rotate it to the left. Make sure it moves accordingly. All right, that all looks good. I'm going to come down to ports here. And remember, we changed what our receiver was connected to, so this isn't going to be accurate anymore. I'm going to come down to configuration. Two things to really take note of is which direction does it call for the props to be turning, and it says to be turning in towards the camera, so this is the traditional setup. That's going to be important when we go to put our props on. We're going to come down here, we're going to make sure our receiver is set up for S-bus, and we have soft serial enabled already out of the box. And another thing you want to check is make sure your arming angle is 180 degrees if you're going to leave the accelerometer on. So we're going to come down to the CLI and go ahead and type in resource. And we're looking for LED strip because that's the pad we connected our SmartPort wire to, and we have it defined as A08. So we're going to type resource LED underscore strip space 1 space none, and this is going to remove that association for the LED strip. Next, we're going to type resource serial TX 11 A08. And now we're going to type save. Come back up to ports. And now we have soft serial 1. We're going to set as SmartPort. And hit save. Go back to ports and just double check that everything stayed. And it did. All right, now go ahead and turn your transmitter on. I'm assuming that you've already bound your receiver to your transmitter. It's easier to do it with the canopy off after you get everything soldered up. So we're going to come down to receiver, and we're going to need to plug in a LiPo because this flight controller doesn't power the receiver off of the USB port. So go ahead and plug in a LiPo. And there we go. We've got our stick movement, but it's not correct for me. I set my quads up as TAER 123. Type that in, hit save. And now your stick input should match. And now go ahead and test out your aux switches. So there's aux 1, aux 4, 2, and 3 for me. So we'll go ahead and make sure we save our configuration. Go over to modes, and we're going to have to set up all our modes if they're not already set up. So aux 1 I use for arming, and that seems to already be set up properly. And that one is also correlated with air mode at the same time. And that is all they have set up. I'm going to set up a beeper on aux 2. And again, these channels will probably be different for you. And I also do a pre-arm because I don't want to lose a finger. And I've had a quad arm by accident on me. And let's see what else we're going to set up here. And we'll set up flip over after crash. It probably won't work well on this model, but we'll set up anyways. If you get stuck on top of a roof, it may be what bails you out. And make sure you hit save when you're done. And we'll come down to motors, and you're going to want to test the motor output. Make sure they're spinning the right direction. Make sure they're assigned correctly. So without props on, obviously, go ahead and select I understand the risks and just spin up number 1 and make sure it's spinning toward the center of the quad. Make sure number 2 spinning and it's spinning towards the inside of the quad, which it is. 3 is good and 4 is good as well. Okay, so that should be about it, except for I'm not getting my telemetry data on my receiver. All I get is r-xsr and r-xbat, and the rest are blanked out. Make sure you hit Discover Sensors. We're going to have to configure the flight controller to recognize the inverted telemetry that we're sending to it. So we're going to type set TLM_half duplex equals on, and set TLM inverted off. And it'd help if I spell it right. There we go. And then type save. And then on your transmitter, you'll get all your telemetry senses. I've got r-xsr, r-xbat, vbat, you name it, they're all there. And that's how you set it up through Betaflight. And this is applicable to just about any model out there. If you were trying to use like the LED pad for smart port telemetry or smart audio, it kind of works the same way. Obviously with smart audio, you don't have to do the telemetry inverted part. But for smart port telemetry, that's the way you have to do it. So this is just a short flight of the Diatone GTB 229 after I set it up, and I've done quite a bit of PID tuning with this. The tune that came with it, it wasn't Betaflight stock. Diatone definitely did put their own stank on it, but their tune really was not very good. There was a ton of bounce back, it had some really weird twitches at high throttle. I found that, honestly, the Betaflight stock PIDs flew great on this. Like I tuned it, and when I was done, I was left with stock Betaflight. So my recommendation is switch to Profile 2, which is stock Betaflight tune, and this thing will fly awesome out of the box. A couple other things to note is you want to set up your motor beeper. I know I set up a beeper on a switch, but I never enabled it in the configuration page. This thing is teeny tiny, and it is very hard to find in even moderate length grass when you do crash it. But this thing flies awesome. Now compared to the Diatone 339, it's not as fast, but that's going to be pretty evident. It's one cell smaller and it's a little bit smaller prop. But the 339 is almost too powerful. You have a hard time holding a stable hover just because those motors and those props generate so much thrust. This thing is a lot smaller, a lot quieter, much less menacing, like if you're going to go fly out in a public area. I think this is probably a better quad. It's a bit lighter, so if you do crash it, chances of breaking something's pretty slim. These props are super durable. So final thoughts on the Diatone GTB 229. I think this is a great little quad. It's light enough that the chances of damaging anything, unless you're like really ramming it into concrete, are pretty low. It's not very menacing. It's, I don't know, public friendly, I guess. Not saying that you should fly around people, but I don't think you'll be freaking people out from, you know, a quarter mile away like you would with like a 5-inch quad. It's compact, fits in just about any carry case that you want to take. This is a good little, I don't know, rip and dip quad, I guess. The setup, you know, the setup is what it is. There's very few plug and plays that don't require a bunch of Betaflight configuration. If you're looking for something that requires almost no configuration, I'd say maybe the Emax Tiny Hawk Freestyle, just since that already has a receiver built into it. But this is like, from a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being complete novice, never flown before, to 10 being I build quads all day long. This is probably a, I don't know, a 6 on that scale. It does require a little bit of knowledge of Betaflight, but just follow my tutorial and you should be good to go. And that tutorial does apply to pretty much any other quad that you want to set up using SmartPort telemetry on soft serial. That's pretty much the way to do it. I mean, there's a little ins and outs here and there, but that's the basic configuration. All right, guys, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate the views, the clicks, the likes. If you want to see more, please like, subscribe, click that bell icon to be notified when I upload new videos. If you're interested in this quad or anything else, please click that link down in the video description. This was sent to me by Banggood for review. I really appreciate everything they do for me. They keep this channel going by allowing me to bring product into the channel to review and to bring to you guys. All right, that's enough from me. I will see you next time. Bye.